migrants humanely.
Yes.
But there's been reports of them on planes with no water,
That was a bunch of
complaining.
crap. That was a bunch of crap.
What do you mean a bunch of crap?
ICE detention facilities have the highest detention standards in the industry. Any of the ICE standards, our detention standards are higher than any state or federal or local facility in the nation, in the world. Someone should go to the ICE website, look at PBNDS 11, performance-based detention standards, and look at our detention standards, highest in the industry.
But are you sure you're only getting illegal criminal migrants? I mean, there were some pictures over the weekend of people that claim to be students, Brazilian students, who were showing examples of bruises on their arms from American deportation flights.
That's ridiculous, but if they want to make a complaint.
But your assurance is what?
The men and women of ICE are professionals. We do this for a living. And I can tell you, I ran ICE for years. I first directed through the ranks. Again, these men and women are professional, highest detention standards in the industry. We take care of these people. But we're going to enforce the law, and we apologize for doing it.
And you're going to do it in a sort of public way with, do you need to use the big military planes? Is that part of a sort of shock and awe tactic? No. They haven't been used before, have they, for migrants?
No, we got President Trump. We're going to use all the government to secure our border, which is the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. And we're going to enforce laws to this country. It's not okay to enter this country illegally. It's a crime. And when you cause a crisis as big as the Biden administration caused, when you overwhelm the Border Patrol, when they can't do their national security job, that's when the fentanyl come across, kill 250,000 Americans. That's when you have a 600% increase in sex trafficking. That's when you have a record number of no-inspected terrorists coming across an open border. President Trump's going to secure the border as promised to the American people. We're going to enforce immigration laws. That's what we're going to do, without apology. We're on board. We're going to go forward. You're going to see it get a hell of a lot bigger in the near future.
Do you need to use big military planes? I mean, really? These big military planes? Can't you use small, little tiny planes? Wouldn't that be better? You know, I got to be honest. I don't know how long the legacy media is going to go on with these Wile E. Coyote antics, where every time they chase after Trump, the Roadrunner, every time they try to, take members of the Trump administration out, they only end up blowing themselves up. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious. Are you going to keep using big military planes? I mean, every time the legacy media thinks one of their cleverly devised schemes is going to finally catch the Trump administration and bring them down, they only end up being exposed for how utterly stupid they actually are. Case in point, here is CNN's ultra-repulsive Caitlin Collins. Remember Trump? You're a nasty person. Oh, you're nasty. This is Caitlin Collins doing the exact same thing with the exact same result. Check it out.
From immigration advocates is that this is going to provide a chilling effect to parents in the school drop-off line or something of that matter.
It shouldn't be a chilling effect unless their child's a terrorist or a public safety threat. If they are a public safety threat, national security threat, they should be chilled. They should be afraid because we're looking for them.
Well, if their parent is here and they're an undocumented immigrant, I think was more of the argument that they were making.
They're not off the table either. I mean, they're in the country illegally, they got a problem. I mean, it's not okay. It's not okay to enter this country illegally. It's a crime, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm in Switzerland illegally. So we're going to enforce laws in this country. So, the schools and the churches and a central location was a policy only for ICE, only for immigration, right? But national security threats and public safety threats have no safe haven in this country, and we'll go where we got to go.
Again, I want you to fully realize what's happening here. Isn't it fascinating that the legacy media, they're not just defending lawbreakers. They're not just actually defending illegal migrants, undocumented workers, immigration advocates. Isn't it fascinating that the legacy media never, ever, even once came close to engaging in these kinds of antics with the bumbling Biden administration? Can you recall the media at any point ever challenging Biden on the hallmark of his agenda, the Build Back Better agenda, which was just a scam? It was a grab bag, a piggy bank for left-wing special interest groups like the Green New Deal crowd. Can you recall a single time when Caitlin Collins pushed back against the Biden administration for enacting their agenda? Of course not. They were cheerleaders for the Biden regime. Everything he did was celebrated as the single greatest political act in our nation's history. I mean, take, for example, the way the legacy media literally slobbered over Biden's original refusal to pardon his son, Hunter. Now, rather than greet that claim with a healthy dose of skepticism that it deserved, rather than claim, yeah, well, Joe, we'll believe it when we see it, come noon on January 20th. If you haven't done it, okay, great. We'll give you credit. Instead of that, they exploited his claim that he would not pardon Hunter. They exploited that in a way so as to hammer Trump. Take a look at this montage.
Potential promise to put the law.
Decision.
Directly, and he has said he wouldn't if he gets convicted.
That's what happens if he loses.
Yeah, but he said it.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Major commitment from the president, accepting the outcome of the trial and also pledging not to pardon his son.
So the challenge for him is really to continue to live up to his
trial. We're hearing from other Republicans who say they don't accept the jury's verdict here in New York.
The contrast is profound. To sit there and say, well, I'm not going to intervene in the legal process and I wouldn't pardon my son. One side, Democrats and Joe Biden protecting the system. Other, Republicans and Trump protecting Trump.
Our current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, again, it's all about the contrast.
President Biden saying, I will respect whatever this jury decides versus
right.
Donald Trump after he was convicted on 34 counts, saying the entire system is rigged against him.
You see, gang, that's not a free and independent press. That's not a media interested in reporting news. That is a sold out corporate industry that does the bidding of the establishment. I've said it this way. The legacy media doesn't speak truth to power. Rather, they speak the power's truth. They don't speak truth to power. They speak the power's truth. What you just saw there, every single word uttered in that montage, which, by the way, goes on for over 9 minutes. I just gave you a little clip there. We have over 9 minutes of example after example after example after example, the legacy media fawning over Biden, claiming he was not going to pardon Hunter, and using that as an opportunity to rip into 9 minutes. Everything you heard, total and complete lie. Wasn't just factually wrong. It was an out and out lie. It's not simply that Biden did end up pardoning Hunter. That's bad enough. It's the fact that the legacy media deliberately whole issue of Biden's supposed refusal to pardon, which was Chris Wallace was skeptical to say, well, what happens loses. It's easy to win, but let's ends up losing election. He said it. He said it. This is a constant among Democrats. I'm sorry, among the legacy media. Whatever Democrats, whatever the Biden administration said is by definition true. It's by definition trustworthy. It's by definition gold. Whatever Trump says is BS. That's how they call that facts, right? This goes beyond simply the issue of Biden ending up pardoning Hunter. It's the fact that legacy media deliberately framed the whole issue of Biden's supposed refusal to pardon his son in such a way that artificially advantaged Biden, the Democrats, as moral and upright, the defenders of democracy, and disadvantaged Trump and the Republicans as the enemies of democracy. That was all, every bit of it. It was a lie. That's why we call them the Democrat media. They are the propaganda wing of the DNC. It's why they will always defend the Democrats and never, ever push on any Democrat. What's to push back on Trump here with the mass deportations of illegals, people who are not supposed to be here in the first place and who have criminal records. And the irony is that all of this pushback, all it's doing in the end is just blowing up in the legacy media's face. Think about what the media has been reduced. They are now, the Democrats, openly defending lawbreakers. And of course, selectively defending lawbreakers. If you're legally violent criminal, you should be treated like a hero. You can go to school and they're not supposed to come near your school. But if you're a J6er, you should die in prison. It's called anarcho-tyranny. There are some group caste that are above, and then there are groups who are going legalist, anarcho-tyranny. And the legacy media is the most disgusting purveyor of anarcho-tyranny. And again, they don't seem to get it. It's all just blowing up in their face. I mentioned in our video earlier this morning that a New York Times Ipsos poll that came out in early January found that 88% of voters, again, keep in mind, New York Times poll, 88% of voters supported deporting illegal migrants with criminal records. 88%. Again, I don't know what's wrong with that other 12%. I don't care. Because 9 out of 10 people supporting a political issue is that's as popular a political issue that you're going to get. So if the legacy media wants to try to push back against policies 9 in 10 voters support, don't be surprised if 90% of the country decides to turn you off, which of course is exactly what is happening. Now, you may have seen this, but this week, CNN, the most distrusted name in fake news, the cable news outlet of Caitlin Collins, of workers, and this, of course, is coming on the heels of audience since its height back. It's so fascinating. It looks like Biden didn't just bring down the Democrat Party. He brought down the legacy media in his implosion as well. Is gone. And so here comes the figure in particular appears to be a rather prominent victim in all of this.
To the fear. Hold on to the truth and to hope. Even if you have to get out your phone, record that message. I will not give in to the lies. I will give in to. Post it on your social media so people can hear from you too. I'll have more to say about my plans in the coming days, but until then, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It has been an honor to be welcomed into your home for all these years. That's the news. Reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta.
So that is the utterly insufferable Jim Acosta, what I often refer to as Jim Acosta, rage quitting on live TV because they consigned him to the graveyard post of on CNN. I want you to appreciate, by the way, just how narcissistic this guy is. He actually believed in that farewell he gave. He actually believed that viewers were going to take out their phones in mass and start a social trend because of his whiny exit from CNN. I will not give in to the lies. I will not give in to the fear. And he thought they were going to post that in mass on social media. Well, needless to say, nothing like that even came close to happening. There's no trend anywhere on social media for I will not give in to the lies. Literally nobody cares what this guy has to say. Nobody. It's so, we've talked about this before, but did you know that CNN viewership actually dropped like 30%? Did you know? I mean, Fox News did a story on this a few years back when CNN averaged about 1.1 million viewers on Saturdays, which they would kill to have right now because their ratings have plunged, as you saw, by 90%. But Fox's report found Acosta's came on those Saturdays. That number dropped, the ratings dropped by 30%. He barely got 700,000 viewers. So CNN actually lost what little audience they had whenever Acosta showed his smug little face on screen. So it's no wonder that CNN is this week. Again, just the irony is so beautiful. See off 100 at the beginning start of Trump. And these layoffs are coming as CNN is absolutely with their rate, particularly running on fumes at this point with whatever little money their cable disaster. And the key demographic for advertisers, the 18 to 34 demographic. I mean, disaster, frankly, doesn't even begin to describe it. And so it looked Acosta was one of the victims of these layoffs. He may have chosen to go his own way, but regardless, President Trump couldn't help but celebrate news. This is what he said after he heard that CNN was basically sidelining. So, wow, really good news. Jim Acosta, one of the worst and most dishonest reporters in journalistic history, a major sleazebag, has been relegated by CNN fake news to the midnight or death because ordinarily had ratings. And of course, no word wants to quit, and that better. The major loser and will fail no matter where he ends up. Good luck, Jim. And he's absolutely right. He's again, this is before this is when he was relegated to the midnight hours. This is before he actually quit. But he's right. Acosta has little talent. He's always made the story about himself. He's a performative reporter. He was a blithering narcissist to the very end. And like all narcissists, he repeatedly lied. He repeatedly reported fake news. He didn't report news. He reported narrative. And he simply will not be missed. He can go the way of Don Lemon and be lost in the realm of obscurity where he belongs. So once again, it all just keeps blowing up in their faces. And to me, that's the key to understanding, at least in part, how we're actually entering into a new age, what scholars are calling a post-liberal, post-globalist age of nationalism, populism, sensationalist populism. I mean, the key for me that this transition is really happening is a very clear dynamic where the more the legacy media vilified Trump since 2020, the more popular he got. And that's so key to understanding, I think, this dynamic of transition. If you think about it, the legacy media and their 24/7 obsession with Trump, they cheerled every single assault against him. The special counsels during his first tenure, the 2 impeachments, the J6 Kangaroo Committee, where every single member had previously voted to impeach him, the FBI raid on his home, the 4 federal indictments, the dozens of felony charges, the lawsuits, the convictions on all counts, and then the absolute height of outrage and absurdity. The legacy media even went so far as to blame Trump for the second assassination attempt on his life. I mean, that says it all. If the legacy media is going to blame you when somebody tries to kill you, there's no, dialogue is not possible here. You can't even imagine a scenario where the legacy media would be blaming a Democrat for being responsible for an attempt on their life. So the legacy media has been cheering all of this on for 4 years straight, 24/7. And what's the result? All it did was make Trump more popular than ever. You can't get around that calculus. After a 4-year-long 24/7 barrage of negative press against Trump, Trump today is more popular than he has ever been. That is an unmistakable sign that the era of the legacy media is finally over, and a new rising MAGA era has officially begun. You all know that I'm very passionate about the fact that we simply can't rescue our nation if we don't first take care of ourselves, and health actually starts with our livers. Now, if you think about it, we throw everything at our livers: cholesterol, alcohol, toxins, Tylenol, statins, cigarettes, you name it. That's why so many of us have a sluggish, fatty liver that makes us gain weight and lose energy. But thanks to today's sponsor, there's a very real solution. Liver Health Formula is an all-natural supplement which contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA and approved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, you can try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. Gang, you know, for me, this is very, very personal. I myself recently lost over 60 pounds, and I can say it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So now it's your turn. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. The insanity of the left-wing UK government has reached a new high. In a shocking revelation, a leaked Home Office report has labeled criticism of two-tier policing as a potential sign of far-right extremism. Now, this leaked report suggests that discussions around grooming gangs in the UK are an issue exploited by the far-right to stir hatred against Muslims. Now, this alarming trend in the UK illustrates just how far rights are being eroded under the guise of maintaining a liberal social order. As Prime Minister Keir Starmer's approval ratings crashed to an all-time low, with a staggering 66% of the public seeing him unfavorably, the reaction from the government is to double down and crack down even harder on free speech. The UK government is also pushing for a new crime of what they call harmful communications. They're attempting to silence dissenting voices, all the while refusing to acknowledge the legitimate concerns of citizens, calling for accountability in policing. This obfuscation fuels the anger that many feel toward their elected representatives who seem so out of touch with public sentiment. Across the UK, instances of censorship and policing overreach are rising. We're witnessing a disastrous erosion of civil liberties as public outrage against these policies grows. Joining me today is Peter McElvenna. He's the director and host of Hearts of Oak, a free speech alliance based in the UK. He's also served as chief of staff to Lord Pearson of Ronach in the House of Lords over the last 10 years. Peter, welcome. Great to see you again.
Dr. Steve, it's wonderful to join you on your show. Thank you for giving me the time today.
Oh, it's my honor. It's great to talk to a fellow patriot from across the pond. Just as some background for those who are just meeting you here, what inspired you to establish Hearts of Oak, and how has your mission evolved since its inception?
Well, my kind of time in London really has been 10 years in church, 5 years in politics, and now 5 years in media. I was very involved in UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party, which was the party that Nigel Farage was there right at the beginning, that delivered Brexit. And he has now reformed that onto the Brexit Party and now Reform. They're doing exceptionally well in the polls. But I was heavily involved in politics. I was national campaign manager for UKIP in 2019 for the European parliamentary elections and for the local elections. And then after we delivered Brexit in some shape or form. That's a whole program in itself. But where do you go? What political party achieves its single aim? I don't know of any political party that had one aim that achieved it and then shuts up shop and goes home. Right. So we were in discussions what to do with UKIP. Should it become a populist party like what we were seeing across Europe, the rise of populism, or something different? And that whole debate was happening, and a group of us decided that we would start a organization that would have those town hall debates across the UK under the umbrella of freedom of speech. And we really wanted to focus on the clash that we are seeing between Islam in the West and also the sexualization of children all across the board in every area. And those kind of were our focus points. We launched, and then we went into worldwide lockdown 2 weeks later. Probably the stupidest time to launch an organization, but who knew? Well, that's another conversation. So we had all these events planned across the country, and we had to cancel them all. And we thought, well, let's start doing media. So 750 odd interviews later, 275 guests, of which you've been one, Steve, on 2 occasions. I've enjoyed having you on, and our reach is bigger and bigger. We have 3 shows a week, 2 guest interviews, and one news review with all different guests. And it's been exciting connecting, meeting people all over the world who share that same passion for free speech. And a lot of people that's undergirded by a Christian faith, by biblical principles that we've lost sight of in our society. And that's why I love your outlook, your view on the rise of not only nationalism, but also a rise of Christianity, because people have that hunger deep inside them. And it is only Christ where they find that. And we are seeing a rise of that in parts of Europe. It's coming behind the rise of populism, but I think the rise of populism will give Christians and churches the backbone, I think, which they have not had, and they'll be able to stand one for their faith. So it's been an exciting 5 years, and it's changed quite a bit as we have gone on. But to me, it's that networking, the connection, the relationships, and realizing that what you can do together is so much more than what you can do separately.
Yes, that's so brilliantly put, Peter. Well, into one of the issues in particular. It's, of course, a major scandal that's rocked UK politics of late. The gang, people learn about more. It absolutely infuriates me. It's a scandal that, as I understand, just goes back 30 years. Involves literally hundreds. That time period with the UK government basically covering it up. I would say both parties, you're a multi-party system there, but in a sense, both parties, both the Tories and Labour, are covering it up equally. How is this scandal being received in the UK? Is there a mass outrage? Is the media honestly reporting on it? What's your sense of the ethos of what's going on with it in the UK right now?
Well, we certainly have a uni party, absolutely. And there's no difference between 14 years of Tory rule that didn't conserve anything. And now we have a left-wing government, which really is just a little bit worse. It's just wokeism on more steroids, where the Tories were on just a little bit of steroids on wokeism. But the first case of this was in 1975 in a newspaper, the Rotherham Advertiser, and it had a story about a girl getting groomed and raped by a group of, they called it Asian men, and that was 1975. We have now had 430 plus individuals, 440 charged and sentenced for this in 40 towns across the UK, in well over 75 trials. And our authorities have turned a blind eye. Now, very few knew this was happening. It was a Labour MP, Anne Cryer, and in her area, up in Keighley, up in Yorkshire, up in the Midlands, she had lots of reports coming to her if this was happening, and that was 93. And then jump on, a journalist reported this in 97. Again, another journalist talked about it in 2002, but it was 2012 on the front page of the Times. Andrew Norfolk, a journalist, did a huge expose on this. And that was the first time kind of the UK was aware this was happening. Now, the figures are, Lord Pearson has talked in the House of Lords at 250,000 girls being raped. Now, Sarah Champion, who's the Labour MP, so on the left in Rotherham, she has talked about up to 1 million girls being affected. So these are huge figures. It's probably the biggest social scandal that we have had in the UK in 100 years. And the cover-up, and why is the cover-up? Now, I've been involved in highlighting this issue, maybe for about 8 years. Lord Pearson has spoken about this in the House of Lords, one of the few to speak about it. And we are actually in the middle of a legal case for one of these girls to actually get money from her perpetrator, because no one has ever sued these rapists. They go to jail, they're imprisoned, often for horrendously short sentences, like her perpetrator, 2 cases of child rape, and they went to jail for 5.5 years, I think. 6 years, got out half of that time because of good behavior. What defines good behavior for someone like that? That's another conversation. But these sentencing are so short, and the police turned a blind eye. The police destroyed evidence. These girls often came to them, filmed evidence, and then they destroyed it. The police arrested the fathers for going to the police to say this happened to our girls.
No, I know. I even read that they blamed the girls on occasions. I mean, or they would arrest there was that one girl. She was in that, what was it, a halfway house or something. They arrested her and they let all the rapists go free. It's just insane.
It's insane, and it was from above, because the police didn't want a race riot. That was the terminology, and that has been repeated a number of times. Child Services knew it was happening. Again, they didn't want to highlight this. It wouldn't have helped their careers. Local politicians, we have a whole council in Rotherham. The whole council, the local politicians, 60 of them, they all resigned, and then they all went back into their jobs. So no one was actually punished for that. And the whole debate at the moment, there are two. One is Elon Musk. So for all our issues about Elon Musk on many issues like AI, transhumanism, huge issues with that, yet he is using X to shine a spotlight on this. On the 1st of January, I picked up my phone. I said, "Free Tommy Robinson." And I stared at my phone. I've known Tommy for 16 years, and I thought I must be still sleeping. How is this happening? I'm staring at my phone and realized then that he was highlighting Tommy Robinson, who is probably the most famous political prisoner in the world now. And he has been jailed repeatedly for highlighting this issue, the failure to tackle these grooming gangs. And then he started going after the British government, Keir Starmer, two-tier Keir, which you touched on earlier. And it's an utter failure for politicians to address this. And this has now become a political football, with the Tories, Kemi Badenoch, saying, well, we need to do this. We need a public inquiry. We need investigation. I'm thinking, your government was there for 14 years, and you dismissed this. You had an independent inquiry, and it lasted 7 years. It cost £200 million. And not a single individual in the police or the public services or in politics was ever charged for turning the blind eye to these girls and sentenced. So it's this issue that the media bring out every so often But what has happened now is Elon Musk has made this a world issue, and the world are looking at the UK thinking, how can you have let this happen?
Yeah.
And of course, one of the big between 2007 to 2013, I think, if I get my dates right. And the Crown Prosecution Service is like the in between the police and the courts. So the police have a crime, and then they would make recommendations, and then the Crown Prosecution Service decide whether that actually goes to court. Now, he was heading that for 6 years, and the questions are, what part did he play in this cover-up? So a lot of questions being asked. The media are reporting on this like never before. The world media are reporting on it.
Yeah.
And the British government are trying to say, well, we're doing our best, but that really isn't happening.
I could say it, for some reason, I recall the first time I think Tommy got thrown into prison. The judge didn't. The judge put a gag rule on the British media, and so almost all the media we were finding out that was reporting on it was from outside the UK. And so there's some, and then we have it here where our media will just be completely, would deliberately silent on the particular issue. And then thank God for the UK media, because they're coming in and saying, wait a minute, something's going on in the States here that we need to focus on. So we're kind of balancing each other out in one shape or form here. Matthew, I do want to talk a little bit, though, about the free speech issues. Matt Goodwin, the political scholar, he's documented how 70% of the terrorist attacks inside the UK are perpetrated by radical Islamists. I think it's a comparable percentage. I think it was even higher. I think it's 80% when it came to the rapes. In terms of the convictions, looking at all the cases, you said, what is it, 430 cases, 40 towns, 75 trials, or 430 convictions, 40 towns, 75 trials. I think Peter, I'm sure you have the correct numbers there, but I think it's that high of a number that are Muslim. For me, I got, just personally as a dad, the Southport murders, the dance school. I mean, that dude, I was like, when I read about that and I saw the pictures of those 3 girls, I just freaked. That was rough for me to watch. But it appears that no one is allowed to talk about this in the UK or to discuss the implications of multiculturalism and the like. What do you believe is the biggest threat to freedom of expression in the UK today? And explain to our audience what you're facing here when it comes to freedom of expression. And if you can, how do you think you can counter whatever obstacles are being thrown your way?
Well, you give some figures, and Peter McLaughlin, who wrote Easy Meat, which is the main book going through all the trials, and that was published a couple of years ago, he talked about 91 or 92% were Muslim. We talk about Muslim Pakistani. Now, the concern is that we are not having a grown-up debate on why this is the case. I would suggest that when you have mass immigration, when you bring in other cultures and maybe beliefs that don't fit in with your freedoms, especially how you treat women and how you treat those who do not accept your faith, then you've got a clash. And who gives way? And we have now got 70-odd Sharia courts in the UK, Islamic courts. We've got Sharia finance, halal food. We've got a whole system that's now been built up around that. And we have very ghettoized societies, no integration at all. It's silos.
Very tribalistic. Yeah.
Very much tribalistic. And I'm in London, and in London, you think it's a beautiful multicultural city. No, multi means you've got ghettoized communities. That all it. And you go on the high street and you know whatever you're in by the type of shops. Are they French shops? Are they shops with Arabic writing? Is it something else, an Italian shops? You kind of get a flavor of where you are. But we've had this massive clampdown. The case you referred to, Southport, was Axel Rudikabana, and he was an individual 16, I think, and then turned 17 or 17, then turned 18. And he had stabbed 3 girls dead and repeatedly stabbed others. I mean, when I listened to the court case, some of it, and there were many parts I could not listen to, and they talked about some girls being stabbed 30, 40, 50, 60 times. So this was a frenzied attack. And when that happened, there was a shutdown of the media. The media were told you're not allowed to report on this. The police were told you're not allowed to ask the public for any information. So there was full shutdown, and that came from the top, from the government. So into that vacuum came discussions on social media, and people start saying, what is happening? Who is this? Is it an immigrant that's just come over in a boat? Is it a Muslim and he's doing that because of that? What is? And the most dangerous thing, I think, for any government is to produce a vacuum after a horrendous event like that, because then conversation, the favorite term of the government, ours and your previous one, misinformation or disinformation. And into that comes that. Now, we find out that the government knew that this individual, Axel, was looking at Al-Qaeda manuals, that he had got a number of knives, that he had ricin, and just wanted to possibly release that into the population. There are all these things happening, and the public were unaware. And when the public got angry, because this was a problem because of mass immigration that we are seeing. People went out in the streets and people began to get angry. And we had 700-800 people arrested. Many of them are still in jail for sentences of like 26 months for a racist comment to a police dog, 26 months for throwing a tin of beer, 28 months for comments on Twitter or on Facebook. So it seemed as though the police were giving bigger sentences to this than we see anywhere else. And in our society, only 98.5% of rape allegations actually go forward to prosecution. So only 1.5. Surely that's where the police should be spending their time. So you've got this whole shutdown. And of course, boogie was social media. This is the problem. It's not the problem with not stopping people. The problem is social media. So there's a massive clampdown. The police said, we will come and find you. Even if you're abroad, we'll come and find you. And of course, Elon Musk had great fun with this because he said two-tier care. And the British government got very angry at that. So we doubled and tripled down and just kept posting what was happening. And Twitter, X, that shows how old we are, X, it became the spotlight for the world, the window for the world on what was happening with videos being disseminated everywhere. So we are in a very dangerous situation in the UK. I don't think you are where we are yet, or don't think you were where we currently are, which is restriction of conversations online. We've got the Online Communication Act, and that's been there for 25 years. That can prosecute you for saying anything which may cause offense to someone else. That has now been tightened up on the Online Safety Bill, which was brought in 18 months ago under a so-called conservative government. Europe have the Digital Services Act, which is more or less the same. And that basically criminalizes speech online. It says, Steve, if you say something that someone else may find offensive, then you're guilty. It doesn't matter if someone has been offended or not. If someone may be possibly offended.
Or they ought to be offended. It doesn't, right? Or just because they are offended doesn't mean what you said is offensive. Yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
And truth is no defense here. It's irrelevant. It's just people's feelings, and that fits into the multiculturalism society that we are, where, and again, moving away from biblical truth, where there is no truth, anything goes. Your truth is true for you, and maybe not for me. And of course, that fits into our education, and so this is a much wider issue. But we are seeing the biggest clampdown on the internet since the beginning of the internet. What is far right? I was talking about immigration, concern of immigration, or two-tier policing, or across. So, the moment in the UK, it's quite dark. But my hope and my expectation is looking at what you was in Trony, a wee office been a blizzard of activity, a whirlwind on one side, and on the other side you have got Europe. And I know you did a video, Steve, maybe a day or two ago on Elon Musk being at the FD conference.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I know. So that the German election is coming up in weeks. You've got the Freedom Party in Austria that came top, have now been asked if they can form a government. Of course, you've got Orban, you've got Maloney. What Maloney just talked about, pulling out of the WHO also. So you've got bright spots across Europe. And I think that pressure from the US and Europe will actually produce something in the UK, which is positive, because the moment we've got 4 years and 3 months of a Keir Starmer far left government, and they keep doubling down.
Yeah, they got doubling down for sure. That's a perfect pivot into my question for you, especially with your history with UKIP. So do you see this as possibly the Reform Party's moment? So yeah, I mean, the Tories are no longer fit for purpose. The Starmer Labour government is the most unpopular ever. Do you think we're going to see a major shakeup in Westminster?
I'm looking at it. I'm intrigued at the polling. The polling, obviously, Labour won by a landslide, 200-seat majority, the biggest majority in 100 years. Conservatives were decimated, the biggest defeat for 100 years. We've always been that two-party system, or have been for many generations. And into that vacuum steps Nigel Farage, and it was 25 years of UKIP until we got that referendum. So he knows what it is to stay at something and to work at something and to actually achieve it. But I don't, and Reform at the moment are polling, all the parties are polling neck and neck. Labour, Tories and Reform. One poll had Reform 1 point above the other two. And they've only got 5 MPs out of 650. So Nigel's done a phenomenal job with such few MPs because of our first past the post system that does not reward smaller parties. It's not like they have across Europe. But I also kind of wish that when Nigel had achieved Brexit in some shape or form, and he's done media, he's been on GB News, and I know he's a very public figure in the US on many different outlets. I kind of expected him to go into the media and do that, and that hasn't happened. My concern of Reform is that President Trump, he says what he thinks. That one with Colombia, FAFO. I mean, beautiful. Now, would anyone in the UK would Nigel have posted that? No, he wouldn't. Yeah. So Nigel is more of a consensus politician.
I noticed he backs away from Tommy Robinson and things like that. Yeah.
So this has been a massive clash, and I think this is I think this is a class issue. Simply,
yeah.
Tommy is working class, Nigel is middle class, and Nigel looks down. And Nigel has made a decision that he doesn't think Tommy will help him get the votes. Right. And there is an argument for that. I understand that. But I would like our political leaders just to do what they believe is right. I don't know whether that's naive. I don't think so. I've been in politics long enough to believe that you can do the right thing, but also you can weigh it off and you can do it correctly. You can decide what your message is. You can tweak it to different audiences, to different people, but it's the same message. And Nigel obviously wants to be Prime Minister in 2029. And if I was a betting man, I think I would go down the bookies and put some money on that, because you possibly get very good odds. Who knows what's going to happen with the Conservative Party? Kemi Badenoch, 100 days in leading the Conservative Party, and she hasn't really made any traction on that. Keir Starmer, hugely disliked and a very weak leader, weak individual. So Nigel has the opportunity, but I kind of wish that he would have more conviction on some of these issues. And I also he talks about immigration, but he said no, he wouldn't send people back. The AfD have talked about remigration. President Trump, that's what you're doing, rounding them up. That's why you've got a borders are. If only we had a borders are. But so we don't have that strength. We don't have that strong message, and we don't have those convictions. And Nigel doesn't want to address the issue of Islam, that clash that we are having, that we've seen all across Europe. And I get that, because maybe it's a smarter thing and a wiser thing not to tackle it, because Islam often says it's a religion of peace, but it does seem to have a lot of violence and get quite angry when things are done that don't go its way. So maybe it is smarter. But someone like Tommy, he has got the convictions, but he is too tarred by the media. So even if out of prison, even if he was politically, I think he's better as a campaigner and not necessarily a political leader. But I really wish Nigel didn't throw Tommy under the bus. He didn't need to, and it was a knee-jerk reaction. And of course, he had that public spat with Elon Musk because of that.
Yes, yes.
I don't know where we are going. We're in a better situation because Reform are polling so well, but they're not. They don't have the resources. They don't have the infrastructure, the branches, the setup across the country at the local level to really go for it. And I know that some individuals have left Reform who've been high profile, and the person who was running for Mayor of London, who I've just forgotten his name, Cox. He was running for Mayor of London, and he has left Reform, and the reason was, he said he's got no connection, no communication from head office at Reform.
Wow.
The only communication he got was a few weeks ago to say, don't talk about Tommy Robinson. So it's kind of on the back foot. So I kind of believe that even if Reform do well, they could do so much better if there was that conviction and more of the cutting edge.
Yeah, the full embracing of the civilizational populism, and that's what you're, Peter, why I love your work so much. It's not just we the people versus the permanent political class, but we the people who are here to defend a particular civilization, as over and against these sort of globalist elites who will sell out our civilization just for their own political and economic power. It'll be interesting to see if Reform could get their act together a bit more if Elon starts bankrolling them. I did see a little report on that, right? I'm sure you saw that Elon was thinking of throwing some pretty heavy money in Reform's direction.
Yeah, and that could happen. Obviously, one time Nigel went over and I met Elon. That picture of Nigel Farage, Elon Musk, and Nick Candy. And Nick Candy was the treasurer of Reform, just come over the treasurer, a very rich financer, he owns properties all over the UK, worth $1 billion plus, which is not normal for the UK. So he has moved from the Tories over to Reform, and that was a really big coup for Reform. But the flip side is that Elon Musk's father says Tommy Robinson could be prime minister in 2029. It's kind of you have to sit back and you have to smile at it, because
that's what I mean. I just think, so Nigel might say, oh no, I don't want to talk about Tommy Robinson, don't want to, and then all of a sudden he looks at the check that Elon Musk writes to him and he goes, Tommy Robinson must be freed right now. Politicians, they could turn literally on a dime, right? So, or a pound, as it were.
Or a pound.
Just practically speaking, Peter, how do you navigate potential censorship while hosting Hearts of Oak content on mainstream platforms?
Well, being kind of new, I mean, I'd never done interview. I'd done, I think, one interview in my life before. So you kind of jump in and you learn. And we've got a great volunteer team that we've all learned on the job. And that's the best way to do it. And Steve, I know your background is not media either. So we've all kind of come to this from different angles. But you look at censorship, and the UK is, we've had journalists rounded up a number of nations and charged the government using the Terrorism Act against journalists as well. I know Tommy has been charged under the terrorism offence, which means he has to give up all his devices. He's not allowed to remain silent. He must answer every question. And they interrogated him for 3 hours plus, non-stop. I have another friend who's a travel journalism, and he came back to the country from the States a few days ago. He was stopped under the Terrorism Act, everything taken off him. He was interrogated. He travels and does travelogues all over the world. He's been to Ukraine, he's been to Zimbabwe, he's been over to Russia, he's all Poland, all different places. So the legislation the government have is extremely dangerous and dubious. But what do you do? What do you do? In one way, we learned early on, especially during COVID, our first video, the first video that got removed on YouTube, we had a guest on, a Swedish journalist, talking about vitamin D being important during that time, and it's good to get sunshine. That was removed for medical misinformation.
Unbelievable.
I didn't know vitamin D was bad, or I don't think even you can overdose. I mean, I take very high strength vitamin D tablets. So, and then it went on and on. You didn't know where the goalposts were. So in the end, we had to delete everything from YouTube. And I think we were kind of targeted maybe early on for saying that, maybe not being as wise as others may have been. And then we slowly put videos back on YouTube. We can't get monetized on YouTube. So that's removed. Of course, Elon Musk buying Twitter, buying X, that has opened up that to many people. We stream on other things. We stream on Rumble, we stream on the website, and we've had a great relationship with Steve Bannon on War Room. So we stream on War Room, on Rumble and Getter there. And you notice, like, you're looking for opportunities and ways to disseminate information, whether it's using Substack, whether it's a good old email list, whether it's using different apps. And you kind of have to keep working your way, and you realize that actually the enemy is the government, because they do not want free speech. The British government would love for everyone to be getting their news from the BBC, and then that's fully controlled. That is no longer the case. And our government, as many governments, don't know what to do with that freedom. And there is clampdowns, but you kind of go with it. And again, I would go back to my faith, that my line just is, well, God has my back, and this is what I'm doing. And you go forward in confidence, trusting that he will look after what we do. What we do is try and speak truth on such a range of issues, whether it's on Israel, whether it's on MEPs in Europe, whether it's on actors, whether there's so many areas that you end up, because you just have a wide range of interests. And Stephen, it's probably same for you, get different topics or different guests, and you end up going down rabbit holes all over the place, and you learn so much. And it's not just restricted on the pure political side, or the pure social side, or but it becomes much wider. So you just kind of go with what happens, you go with what's in front of you, and you kind of try and exercise a little bit of wisdom in what you say.
Yeah, I couldn't concur more. It's exactly what we have to do. You have to exercise that wisdom. But yeah, it just seems we're just in a new era now where they can't control it. Every time they think they can control the communications, we end up finding another way of just bypassing that control. But I like to say we're able to bypass the legacy media now today in a manner comparable to the way email and texting bypasses the post office, as it were. Again, they could try to clamp down on the email and the texting all they want. We'll always find some way around it. Peter, how can people keep in touch with your work? It's wonderful. Again, I love how you focus on the whole of the Western civilization. How can people keep up with you?
So our shows are every Monday and Thursday. We have guest interviews, and every Saturday we have a news review at 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can find us at Hearts of Oak UK on X, or at Hearts of Oak everywhere else. And we stream on the website, which is heartsofoak.org. So all different places to find us, but heartsofoak.org/connect. You can go there and it lists all the places you can find us.
Absolutely. And we'll just have all the links down below. Check out Peter's podcast, his X profile, for these very deep insights week after week, and stay informed about the fight for liberty in Europe and all throughout the West. Again, the links are down in the description below. Peter, thank you so much. Great to see you again. Let's chat soon, real soon.
It's an honor to be on your show, Dr. Steve Turley. Thank you so much.
The honor's all ours, Peter. Thank you.
I'm very passionate about the fact that we simply can't rescue our nation if we don't first take care of ourselves. And health actually starts with our livers. Now, if you think about it, we throw everything at our livers: cholesterol, alcohol, toxins, Tylenol, statins, cigarettes, you name it. That's why so many of us have a sluggish, fatty liver that makes us gain weight and lose energy. But thanks to today's sponsor, there's a very real solution. Liver Health Formula is an all-natural supplement which contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA and approved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, you can try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. Gang, you know, for me, this is very, very personal. I myself recently lost over 60 pounds, and I can say it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So now it's your turn. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley.